Hi guys, Buildzoid here, and today we're going to be doing a follow-up video to the speculating about RDNA2 video, just addressing some things that I've seen people bring up in the comments. And so first up, a lot of people have complained about me scaling the 3080 off of the 2070 Super and not multiplying by 2. This is NVIDIA's announcement day performance chart. This is from their presentation. This doesn't show the 3080 as being twice as fast as a 2080. Not even a 2070 Super. So, either this chart from NVIDIA is wrong, in which case you would assume that they wouldn't put it in their presentation, or the claimed 2x performance increase is like they were rounding up. Which I wouldn't like, that seems completely reasonable to me. Yeah, on average it's like 2 times faster. Like 2 times faster is a lot like 1.8. So, this is where I got my 1.8 from. Anyway, and that's still a, massive performance increase in my opinion, but whatever. And maybe this chart is going to be outdated by the time the cards launch and the drivers get a little bit more optimized. Which reminds me about some other point that I want to talk about. There we go for the rest of this video. I actually have notes for this because I did not sleep well, and so basically, I'm a mess right now, mentally, and I'm going to have a really hard time keeping track of this video, so I'm writing down things right now that I'm going to want to talk about later, because I've done 2 takes before this one, and they were the second take was already blurring into the first one, which is just like, okay, so my brain is just toasted. Anyway, so yeah, this is where I got my 3080 performance from. The other thing I want to address is a lot of people were like, RDNA2 is going to have higher instructions per clock. As far as I'm aware, the multiple revisions of GCN had some form of increase in instructions per clock. It's just really unfortunate that most of the time it doesn't show up in benchmarks. So, similarly with RDNA2, there might be an IPC increase. It might be very, very small. Because that's the other thing is, just because there's an IPC increase doesn't mean it's 10% or even 5%, right? Look at some of Intel's architectures where, Intel's architecture updates where it's like, oh yeah, this specific set of instructions is, I think, AVX has been getting really, really fast on Intel, or at least was getting really fast until we got stuck on Skylake cores for several generations. But before that, the main performance gain on Intel CPUs was oh yeah, AVX is 15% faster this time. It's everything else is 3% faster, but AVX, man, it's way faster. So similarly with RDNA2, it's yeah, there might be an IPC increase. I don't necessarily think it's that big or even that significant, even if it was big. Because historically, GCN was basically just more cores, more clock speed, and reduce the impact of tessellation workloads. That's basically all the optimization that went into GCN. At least from my perspective as somebody running benchmarks and overclocking the cards. I don't know enough about GPU architecture to say there was no significant increase in IPC. I'm clueless about that. But, if I run 3D Mark on a 290X and I run 3D Mark on a RX 480, they sure look very similar, and that's most of where it's and those are relatively far apart in terms of GCN implementations. Because I think the 290X is GCN 2, and I want to say the RX 580 is GCN 4, because it came out after Fiji. And Fiji, I'm pretty sure, was GCN 3. And originally it was GCN 1, 1.2, or actually might be 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. But with GCN, basically the IPC increase was yeah, the tessellation workloads have less of an impact now. That was most of it. And then if you ran something that wasn't super tessellation heavy, it was just more cores, more clocks. That's how GCN evolved. So I'm not really yeah, there might be an IPC increase. I don't know how much it is, and therefore I'm not going to factor it into my calculations, because I'd rather underestimate what AMD is going to launch and be pleasantly surprised rather than overestimate and be really disappointed. And, if I correctly estimated that we're not going to see some kind of miracle from AMD, then I get to feel, validated for being correct. Not that it means anything, because being correct about a chip that you can't even buy is useless as far as I'm concerned, but sure. Which we're gonna get to. That's a topic I want to address as well. I'm super annoyed with this right here. Um, anyway, not because it's low, quite the opposite. Um, so yeah, the IPC increase, I'm not really like I don't. There might be one. I don't know. I don't really factor it in. Series X power consumption. So this is something I keep getting into arguments about. Which is that like a lot of people keep telling me that my 180 watt GPU power draw is too high, and the thing is like so let me get this straight. If you buy a 5700 XT, you get a VRM, you get memory, you get a GPU core, you get display outputs, you get a PCIe interface, you get an SoC, you get a memory controller, you get a display driver, a PCIe driver, you get a fan, right? These are all things that pull power, and the fan is probably the lowest power. Actually, no, the PCIe interface rail I think is actually the lowest power of them all. But anyway, point is, you get all of this junk on your GPU. And the way I'm looking at the Series X is basically, well, imagine a 5700 XT with 30% more CUs, significantly better power efficiency, a bigger memory controller, and then of 4 cores of CPU attached, right? And we're just going to ignore the 8 CPU cores. We're just going to like axe those from my power expectations. And so VRM power losses, memory controller power losses. This doesn't really have much of a PCIe interface because it's bolted directly to the CPU that it talks to. Whereas on a motherboard, your PCIe has to run the whole length of the freaking board. But I think that's mostly on the CPU side of things in terms of power draw, though. Anyway, the thing is just like, yeah, so I'm basically calculating so my 180 watts includes VRM losses, includes all of that, except these 2 phases right here that I suspect are for the CPU core, or the CPU cores. So yeah, and I've had some people go like, "Oh, the GPU is going to be 130 watts," and it's just like if we compare my 180 watts to somebody else's 130 watts, like with their 130 watts, we would be looking at an 80 CU RDNA2 chip that does like over 2 gigahertz and beats a 3090, which I'm not buying. Okay, like I'm not buying that. I find that super unrealistic. Also, if this was like if your memory and VRM and all of that combined pulled 130 watts, your GPU core would be like 90. And this does not look like the VRM you would use to provide 90 watts of power. Because this looks like the VRM copy-pasted right off of a 5700 XT, which is a 225 watt GPU. So, and this has more memory controller. So the power distribution between, like this thing's power balance between like core and memory is significantly like skewed towards the memory more so than on the 5700 XT where you have 256 bits of GDDR6. This has 320. So yeah, like this is 180 watt. Like basically it's more like mine is basically 180 watts board power minus CPU power draw. That's where I'm getting my 180 watts from. Because the thing is, like, if you buy a GPU, you get a VRM, you get a memory system, you get all of that. And so it doesn't make sense to me to discuss the power consumption of just the core, because then you're still going to have to add on the memory system and add the VRM back on and add. And the thing is, like, the VRM efficiency is probably going to be roughly like it's going to be relatively similar on a console as it is on a desktop GPU. So in my opinion, it just makes more sense to keep the VRM as part of the overall power consumption and scale both of them instead of scaling them separately, because it's like, yeah, it might give you a little bit more accuracy, but we're speculating here. Who cares about plus minus 10%? Which is generally like, and plus minus 10% is actually a really good margin in my opinion. So yeah, I like that's the thing. I felt like I need to clarify my power draw expectations like there. So I think we have a 180 watt GPU system or GPU board, if you want to put it that way, not just the core, which still puts us like, yeah, like that's still really good efficiency. That's well above the 50% efficiency increase that AMD claims for RDNA2. So I feel pretty, and that's like the only statement we have from AMD as far as I'm aware about how RDNA2 is going to perform is it's going to be 50% more efficient, which to me means 50% more FPS at the same power consumption, maybe, right? Like, because the other thing is like maybe they're taking it at a different part of the efficiency curve. I don't know, but like again, I'm just gonna like, and with my calculations for the Series X, we're at like 60% efficiency gain, or approaching 60% efficiency gain. If we rescaled if I rescale what I've done for like 130 watts, it ends up being like 2 times more efficient, which is just like, no, I'm not buying that. AMD was saying they're aiming for 150. 150% efficiency. Therefore, I am not willing to take more than like I still think my 1.6 times efficiency increase is a bit too high, but maybe like the thing that keeps nagging in my head is that there's two factors I'm kind of concerned scaling off of the Series X performance. So one, this is a this is a 52 CU chip. It is smaller than what we're going to get on desktop. And the biggest problem I can see with an 80 CU RDNA2 chip is like, what kind of memory system are they going to attach to it that isn't gonna bottleneck it, right? Like, I really think they're going to have to use HBM, which if anything, that would make the efficiency better because HBM is ever so slightly more efficient than GDDR6. If they use GDDR6, then we're going to probably see a 384-bit bus, and then it's going to slam headfirst into a memory, like it's going to run out of memory bandwidth, and it might end up below a 3080. Again, like we don't like, I don't have any internal information, so like you're like I'm just making wild, but I like to think educated guesses, but to be completely honest, they're wild and like there's no basis to them other than AMD's claimed 50%. And then I'm just like, okay, well, I'm assuming they're reasonable about their memory choices. They're going to use something like HBM. Also, there was like a rumor that RDNA2 might come with both a GDDR6 memory controller and an HBM memory controller, which is really strange because you would bloat your die for no good reason. But I don't know, like it would be a better solution to the problem than memory starving the top GPU, right? So I don't know. Like so that's the thing is like we could see basically what I'm concerned with is we might see less than perfect scaling, in which case the IPC would actually be lower, right? Like that's the thing is like so I basically took my my theoretical 6800 XT or 6900 XT performance based off of like doubling of 5700 XT, but who knows? Maybe it doesn't scale properly. Like maybe it doesn't scale linearly to 80 CUs. It runs into the Vega problem where once you hit 56 CUs, you add another 8, it doesn't do anything, right? Because Vega and the Fury cards also did this, where it's like the Fury clock for clock is about 3% slower than a Fury X, but there's I think a 12.5% difference in core count. Off the top of my head, yeah, it's 12.5. I might be wrong about that, but I think it's 12.5. Yeah, it is, right? Because 68 cores of 64 is 1/8. 1/8 is 12.5%. Yeah, so 12.5% more cores for a 3% increase in performance. Maybe RDNA2 has that same problem once it gets up to 64 CUs, and then past that, the scaling gets really bad. I don't know. That's a possibility. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe the 3840-bit memory controller is fine, and it'll actually end up being significantly slower than the 3080. I don't know. Okay, I don't know, but I'm trying not to be overly optimistic, and at the same time, like, I'm gonna assume they're not gonna memory bottleneck their GPU. And one of the main things that RDNA was supposed to do was solve the scaling issues that Vega and Fiji had, where it was like, yeah, we've got 56 CUs, then we add 12% more, and it does nothing. So I'm being, I'd say, kind of optimistic with my expectations still, but. That's the thing is, like, I still don't even like my own prediction. There's no real information on these damn chips. So, what am I going to do? Oh, and the other thing that I wanted to address, console performance. So, I scaled my performance figures off of double of 5700 XT. The thing with the, I know apparently the Series X is rumored to be like 2080 super territory, maybe faster, maybe a lot faster. The thing is, I wouldn't necessarily, put too much weight into the performance of a console chip just because consoles, software-wise, are very different. Or, well, like the Series X probably isn't that different from Windows, but it's still pretty different. Like, you don't have a CPU normally attached to GDDR6. Your CPU normally doesn't live on the same chip as your GPU. Like, there's a lot of differences between uh, this and a desktop GPU. So, well, basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, let's say AMD made a 52 CU GPU based exactly on the specs of the Series X GPU. I would assume the desktop GPU, like the 52 CU desktop GPU, would actually be somewhat slower than the Xbox GPU, even though they'd have the same physical, like, hardware specs, just because there's the software difference between consoles and Windows. And on Windows, if you're a game developer, your priority is to optimize for, like, if you're specifically targeting PC optimizations, you're probably optimizing for NVIDIA, because NVIDIA has 80% discrete GPU market share. And, like, again, maybe if you have a less demanding game, you might be optimizing more for integrated GPUs, in which case AMD does a lot better. But that's the thing, is just like, if you're lucky, the console optimizations carry over from the console to the desktop, and AMD's GPUs get a boost there, which I think we've been kind of seeing with some recent games, something like that. But yeah, like, that's kind of the thing, is just like, I would not pay too much attention to the performance of a console chip, because consoles are not desktops, and so their performance isn't going to translate one to one. So that's the other thing that I wanted to address. And then the last thing I wanted to address, is it? Yeah, so we've talked about the 3080 performance, the power thing, the IPC, the console performance. I still feel like I forgot a point, but at this point, I give up. I just want this video over with. This was supposed to be a low-effort follow-up for a low-effort garbage video that for some reason... Oh, damn it, there are no comments. Yeah, this right here, that right there, damn it. I'm not getting the comment I wanted, but somebody was like, "Oh man, this is like the best kind of video on your channel," and it's just like, yeah, you don't say. I'm really disappointed about that, by the way. Like, this is literally just like baseless speculation video based on, like, one statement from AMD about 1.5x increase in power consumption, looking at the voltage regulator configuration of the Series X, which looks to me like a voltage regulator built for roughly like somewhere around 200 watts of combined power draw overall, and so probably about 180 of that is the GPU stuff. What else is there? Like, yeah, and that's like it. Oh, and then using like Tech Power Up's performance charts and NVIDIA's performance charts to extrapolate various performance figures. Like, this is the lowest of lows in terms of video quality, as far as I'm concerned. Also, I don't get why people love watching these stupid speculation videos. Like mine is stupid, but there's lots of other speculation videos like this where it's just like, why do people care so much? Like, you can't even buy the bloody things. You can't buy a 3080. You can't buy a 3090. You can't buy a 3070. The 3070 is supposed to hit retail by like October or something. So it's like, you've got, what month is it? My sense of time is amazing. Okay, it's September 07, and oh, right, October goes after September. I'm great at time. Uh, anyway, so we're like 30 plus days away from, or around 30 days away from any NVIDIA GPUs being purchasable or having proper performance testing done on them. And then AMD is like, we don't even know when AMD is launching, probably around the same time they're launching their Ryzen CPUs, which is really dumb in my opinion, or maybe they're just trying to hide how bad not RDNA2 is behind the CPUs. That it's like, oh, well, the GPUs suck again, so let's just launch them alongside the CPUs so everybody forgets about that. At least Ryzen can be now used to cover up the GPU. Like, if there's GPU problems, you can use Ryzen to cover it up, so that's great. Great for AMD right there. But anyway, so the AMD GPUs are like months and months away. So basically, and I get it. Some people are probably like, "Oh, should I buy an AMD GPU right now or should I wait for the AMD GPU launch?" And it's just like, I don't know. How patient are you? Right? And I don't think that like I don't necessarily expect AMD to just blow NVIDIA out of the water. Okay? Like as much as I think it would be really cool if that happened, because I've wanted like to be able to bench an AMD GPU for 3D Mark rankings competitively without having to go resort to some weird like gimmick configuration where it's like, oh, it's quad GPU, so Fiji is actually still not completely irrelevant in certain benchmarks for quad GPU. Just because quad GPU is weird and there's a lot of benchmarks where they're really CPU bottlenecked, so you can run 4 Fiji cards and then carry them with your CPU performance and be like, look, I've got 3D Mark. I'm actually pretty sure. Yeah, I'm top 10 for 3D Mark Vantage quad GPU, with like a 7940X and 4 Fury X's. Oh, and actually, I want to rerun that with a 3950X someday, like that same GPU count with a 3950X, because then it will be like an all AMD score. And so to me, it would be really cool if I could bench like a 69X, like a 6900 XT or a 6800 XT. Like again, we don't know what they're going to be called, with a 3950X for 3D, or probably not a like the thing is with the probably actually with a 10900K, just because once you clock the Intel chips to over 6 GHz, they just kind of win everything anyway. But you get the point. Is like I like my AMD GPUs a lot more than NVIDIA GPUs. And so I would like to be able to bench them. Like it would be cool to be able to bench them again, without having to be in like very specific hardware category stuff. So yeah. Where was I going with that? Right. So yeah, but I like the. Oh, now I remember. So the thing is, I don't expect like AMD to just blow Nvidia out of the water, or if they are like, if there is a chance AMD has some crazy good deal on their future GPUs where it's like you should actually wait for it. I'm pretty sure AMD's marketing department would like, considering how much stupid crap that their marketing department for the GPUs has done in the past. I don't think they would like let us not know that their next GPU is incredibly amazing. Okay? And I think the thing is, I think they're probably holding like they're probably waiting for like actual reviews from NVIDIA GPUs or something like that, right? Like they're not like it's not really any rush. So if they wanted to give us teasers, then they still have plenty of time because you still can't buy an NVIDIA GPU. And there's also a good chance that NVIDIA GPUs are going to sell out immediately because that's been happening for a lot of hardware recently, and just in general. So yeah, and if that happens, then again, AMD doesn't need to rush it because it's like, well, maybe people want to buy the competitions card, but if it's physically impossible to obtain one of the damn things, you don't need to you don't need to worry about that. So yeah, that's kind of it. So that's my follow up. Oh wait. Yeah, so that's my follow up with the whole like this is really dumb. I don't know why 24,000 people watch this. Like I'm super annoyed about that cuz it's like I have like this was also a really low effort video and that gets 12K views. And this is like even worse than that. And this video is next level compared to this cuz this was dumb and filler and this is like the response to the dumb response to the dumb filler. Yay, we've got dumb squared in this video. It's like, I mean, to be completely honest, I can understand how most of my other videos don't have mass appeal, but this right here, like, the lowest of low effort, as far as I'm concerned. That right there, that's a really stupid video. Because, like, you can't even buy the bloody things, and you won't be able to buy any of them for a while, so, why worry now? I guess if anything, what you can start doing right now is just saving up money. So maybe by the time AMD launches something worth a damn, you'll be able to buy it. So yeah, or if you see it like, or if the Nvidia release turns out even better than Nvidia's claims, which I don't think is very likely, but you know, yeah, no, I don't really think that's gonna happen. Um, yeah, like just wait, just wait. It's not like you're gonna die if you don't buy a GPU right. Like if you don't buy a GPU immediately on launch day, especially considering that hardware releases have recently been kind of slowing down. Um, like I'm actually happy about that because it's just like, yeah, like you don't need to spend so much money so frequently to stay up to date anymore. Um, so yeah, speculation videos are dumb. I'm really like the only reason I did that video is because I've been seeing the constant spam of like, oh, AMD is doomed. AMD is gonna, right. Actually, I'm no better. I'm no better. Like this is literally just as bad. Like my video is like my video is basically AMD might be okay. you know? And then we have the other side of that, like AMD is gonna destroy Nvidia, and AMD can't even reach the 3070, which, like, we are talking about an eight, like the leaks point to an 80 CU RDNA2 chip. Like, even if it was horribly bottlenecked, it would, like, let's say AMD literally just gave it a 384-bit GDDR6 memory controller, and they did nothing to address the memory bandwidth issue. You would still expect it to have at least like 50% more performance than a 5700 XT, which would admittedly put it exactly around the performance level of a 3070, but not like massively below. And I guess if they clock the memory up to 16 gigabits per second, you would get like a little, yeah, you could maybe, slightly beat a 3070 or match a 3070. And that would be assuming they completely screwed up the memory side of the GPU, which is just like, they've used HBM before. They've put HBM in Vega 56, which they were selling for like, what, $400 or something? Like, so obviously HBM's high manufacturing cost isn't a problem. And if AMD does come out with a 3080-ish competitor using HBM, well, NVIDIA is charging $700. AMD can go charge $700 too. Covers the HBM manufacturing costs. Um, so, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Man, and this video turned out way longer than it should have also. I'm so disappointed in myself for making this video. Like, I'm disappointed in this video doing so, like the previous video doing so well, and me making it, and then I'm disappointed in this one probably being similarly successful, and the fact that I decided to publish it. Because it's just like, actually, yeah, no, you're gonna watch this, it's published. This is such a stupid video. Like, we're literally talking about chips that don't exist. You can't even buy them. You won't be able to buy them for like a month or two, maybe 3. It's just like, wait, just wait. Like, this is, like, that's the worst part of it, is just like, who cares? Like, we'll know on launch day, right? Like, that's my favorite. Like, I'm no longer, like, I'm no longer willing to discuss RDNA2 speculations whatsoever. Like, I'm sick and tired of seeing speculation around RDNA2. I'm no longer willing to discuss it with anybody. I'm no longer willing to change my mind about my own personal expectations either, because if I'm wrong, I'm going to be wrong on launch day, and I'm going to be pleasantly surprised. Or I'm wrong and AMD somehow manages to really screw up and end up like, because I'm still saying it's around a 3080. And there are some rumors that are like, oh, it's like 3070, which just like AMD, like you'd at least hope that they figured out how to beat a 2080 like AMD had to have figured out how to beat a 3080. I mean 2080 and 2080 Ti after all this time, right? Like, at the very least they had to have figured out how to do that much. Though admittedly it took them forever to even get close to the 1080 Ti, so I guess I might be expecting a bit much. Um, but yeah. Like, man, and this video just keeps getting longer. I'm just going to stop the video. I'm not even going to do the outro to save you some time, but, I mean, there, see? Done.